My name's David Shields and I play Jacob Dunn. So Jacob starts off the play, he's a young man, an adolescent still, a 19-year-old kid from a place in South Nottingham called The Meadows. He's caught up in a life of petty crime and enjoys going out on the weekend and having fun with his friends and getting into trouble and getting into fights. That's how the play starts, and then unfortunately on a certain night in 2011, Jacob Dunn, the real person and also the character in the play, because it's a true story, threw a single punch which took the life of a man called James Hodgkinson. And the story unfolds from there, and it tells how the punishment that he faced and the relationship that grew with the parents of the boy that he killed. You know, I think one of the reasons why men especially seem to get so emotional at the end of the show is because they see someone trying to learn an emotional language from scratch, and I think they recognize how big that feat is that Jacob achieves. This is a role which has everything in it, you know. You see a guy go from peak arrogance and boisterousness and confidence to an absolute shell. That's a huge transition. So that's something that I was interested in tackling as well, yeah. The first half's very athletic, it's very energetic, and so the experience of that is just trying to measure your kind of energy levels, and make sure that I'm telling the story properly in spite of all the movement that's going on. And the second half requires me to meet a lot more sort of emotional peaks, and so that's a different kind of job to do. But you know, in total, my experience of playing this has been the most important thing I've ever been a part of. It's amazing to be a part of a production which, you know, feels like it as such, without trying to sound too kind of self-important, feels like it's really changing people. You can see that in the way that people come out of the show at the end of the night, you know, and they feel the need to kind of come up to you. There's almost like compulsion to come up to you and talk about it. So fortunately for me, Jacob was involved right from the off in the first week of the rehearsal, so I had him. I could go out with him after rehearsals and ask him the questions and fill in those gaps and study his mannerisms, study the way he spoke, ask him all the questions that I need to ask him. I mean, James, as he's often called these days, he's our State of the Nation playwright, so I think he's just perfectly positioned to write about these kinds of issues of social justice. Is what he's interested in, and he does it very well, and he does it with a sense of humor and a sense of huge insight and specificity and respect for his subjects. You know, in this story, it was amazing to witness how much respect and care he had towards the people that he was writing about. One of the hardest things we had to do was we had to rehearse the show to Joan and David and Jacob in the same room in a brightly lit rehearsal space, which was a really hard thing for them, I think, to witness the play for the first time and rehearsing out some of the worst moments in their life. There was the use of the word accident throughout the show, and different characters calling it an accident. And David made the point on that day when we were rehearsing to them that, you know, it wasn't an accident. You don't punch someone accidentally. And then James then put that line into the script. So he has this kind of feedback loop with his subjects, which was just really special to see. I could see why his writing is so good, because he has so much care for what he's writing about. It's a heavy piece. We're dealing with really heavy themes, and it does require a lot, and requires you kind of trying to measure your energies throughout the performance. But fortunately, you know, we've got a really supportive team here, really supportive cast and crew, and And so we're carried each night, and we're carried by the real people behind the story. You know, it's bigger than us, this story, and the power lies in the individuals behind it. With James's writing, it kind of takes care of itself in a way, you know, and it kind of carries us along with it. On the outset, if you were reading the program, you would think, wow, this is quite a heavy and intense piece, which it is, obviously, but it's also very funny in places, and I think audiences will, be taken by surprise by that. I think these kind of empathetic questions which it creates and poses for the audience. I think theatre is a space which or a medium which deals with those better than any other. And so I think it's perfectly suited to these kind of deeply, what would you call it, like basic, almost primal questions of violence and our reactions to violence and our abilities to, the question of whether we're able to forgive people that do things to us, or how we make up from the things that we do. I just feel like it's a space that's just very well suited to these particular kind of questions and themes. I think people want to try and get a grip on what a positive definition of masculinity might be. And I think in this production, you see a young man exhibiting some of the very negative aspects of masculinity, and then hopefully trying to make up for those and repair the damage that results from exhibiting that form of masculinity. And I think that's touching a nerve currently, that kind of theme, that kind of question, that kind of story. I've never been in a theatre which garners the kind of emotional response that this show does. You know, at the end of the second act, it's a kind of a chorus of sobbing that just gets louder and louder, and they'll have a whole range of emotions, but hopefully by the end, we send the audience to a place which is very emotionally charged, because what they're witnessing, it's a true story. They know that the people are real people behind the story, and they're witnessing an incredibly astounding event. I went in and I did an audition for Adam, our director, and I thought I'd screwed it up. But then I was over in America and I did a Zoom audition with James and Adam, and then after that they gave me the job. I'd never really read a play like it, a play which made me emotional just in the reading of it, and which was a true story and a new play as well. I mean, it was exciting to take on a new play. I've never done that. To be part of that kind of process where you're changing it and developing in it, and that kind of organic, kind of evolutionary process. If you know or have young men or boys in your life and you want to take them to watch the theatre, this is a great choice. It's very accessible, it's very current. It's not only a great story, but it's also a great story if you want to introduce someone to theatre in general.